Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's episode, this is going to be for my binge watch Britney series, and we are covering Forever on Netflix. Alrighty, so I have my notes on my phone. We're going to set a timer for 25 minutes and see if we can get everything covered in 25 minutes. So let's just go ahead and get into the intro. So first off, I started binge watching this TV show last night, maybe around 9 p.m. I stayed up until 3 a.m., got to episode, I think 7. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait. I can watch these next 2 episodes tomorrow, and I went to bed. But those first 6 episodes were amazing. I was literally cheesing the whole time just out of just sheer happiness and joy for what I was seeing on the screen, because this project was very, very well done. And I don't remember the last time that I felt those emotions, like those positive emotions about seeing love and joy on the screen and just really wholesomeness. The last 2 times I can remember feeling that way watching a TV show or a TV show movie was To All the Boys I Loved Before, and then also The Kissing Booth. So obviously those are kind of rom-com movies about couples falling in love in high school, all of that stuff. And so this book fit into that theme of what I like watching, and it was just so amazing to see, and it made me want that for myself. Obviously my childhood was not like that. That's not the experience that I had romantically, but just knowing that that happens for other people, seeing it displayed, and just letting people know that it's okay to be young, to fall in love, and to value your relationship and decide if you want to be this person who goes after your career, if you want to put more priority on your relationship, and then also what it's like when you have to balance those two things, relationship and the career goals that you want for yourself. One thing I definitely have to say is that this was well cast. So I loved every character in this TV series. I don't know everybody by name, so I'm going to refer to the characters. I loved Eric, who is Justin's dad. Obviously that is Wood Harris. I know him from I want to say he's been in he's been in a bunch of different iconic Black movies and TV shows. There's one specifically that I'm thinking of with basketball, but I also know him from Remember the Titans, so he's a known name. And then Dawn, who played Justin's mother, I know her from a TV show that I just watched about the White House. If she was a lawyer or something like that, and she was just kind of like this badass character, and so I've seen her face before, even though I don't know the actress's name. Now Justin and what's her name, Keisha. I've seen Keisha before, and I think I remember her vaguely from Raising Canon, but I had to look her up to kind of verify how I knew her because she looked familiar. And then I've never seen Justin before. I've never seen Justin's friend Darius before, and I've also never seen Chloe before. But the actress who plays Chloe, and I guess the role that she had in this TV series, it reminded me of that girl from Degrassi who was in Ginny in Georgia, and I can't think of her name. But that's basically who that character reminded me of. I've never seen the actress who played Keisha's mom before. I haven't seen the guy who played her dad, but everyone across the board was well cast, and they fit into the telling of the overall story, which I really love, because there can be times when you have side characters who are there to kind of just move things along, but they don't really say anything or do anything of substance. But I think all of the side characters, they played a huge role in shaping the story and making it feel so wholesome and making it feel like it truly was a community. And so I just really love that the people that they chose to work on this project and be the main characters and part of a storyline, that they were the characters were well developed, I believe, and then they were also well cast, because you can have a character who's well written, but if you don't pick the right actor to play them, it just doesn't come to life the way that it should on the screen. More importantly, though, what I want to talk about is Justin and Keisha. So their chemistry obviously has to be on point because the story is about them. I thought that the chemistry that they had together when they were interacting with each other, it made it more believable. Like you can have, like, for example, All American is another Black TV show, and the newest season, season 7, if you're comparing the acting and the chemistry from season 7 All American to this, these are not even in the same ballpark. Like, obviously, Forever is going to be top tier, higher quality, whatever. All American, it's not there to where it has the same effect of what I got from watching Forever. So the acting was very well done. It was believable. And I'm just gonna leave it there because I have a few more things that I want to get into about that. But I thought that the chemistry was well done and it made you want to keep watching because I love the way that Justin's face lit up every time he saw Keisha. Like, you could tell that he loved her, the impact that she was having on him. You could tell that the relationship was meaningful and it was significant, and then obviously she was happy to see him as well. So you could just tell that this was a great relationship. Like, they're not first loves, but they very easily could be the love of each other's life. So I was really fascinated by that because I know what they said, like, first love, young love, it doesn't last, whatever. But this was just so hopeful and inspiring, and it made you want that if you don't already have that, or if you've never had that experience before, or if you are someone who is in high school and you're about to have that experience, and you can see how beautiful it can be, how it should look, because a lot of the times we have these TV shows or these movies about broken relationships and you see everything going wrong, but you don't always see everything going right. Like, if there's something going right in somebody's relationship, they're kind of mainly like the exception, not the rule or whatever. And so in this telling of this relationship, I feel like it should be the rule to have a first love or to find the love of your life in this type of way, where you go through a lot of heartache and pain, but there's also a lot of true love there. Like, you really care about this person, you appreciate and understand the importance and what they mean to you and what they bring to your life as well. The other thing that I want to call out about their chemistry that I found really pretty cool is that Justin seemed kind of quiet and not necessarily meek, but he just seemed nervous all the time. But then when he was interacting with Keisha, he had all of this confidence. He was being witty, he was being a smartass, and it just seemed like she made him blossom into a completely different person. And it's not that she made him do that, but being around her, he felt comfortable to bring that side of him out. And so I really love that, because that's how you know when you're in the right relationship, when someone makes you be the better version or the best that you can be. They bring out all of those good things that are inside of you that you aren't quite ready to share yet, but because you're with this person, you feel like you have a safe space to be that way when normally you may not be. Okay, so that was a really long intro, so let's just go ahead and get into the rest of the episode. Alrighty, okay, so let's just backtrack and kind of just talk about the series in general. So this series was inspired by a book by Judy Blume. I can't recall the title of the book, but I do know the author. I have read a few of her children's books, so I know that this author is a big deal, and that because of who the author is, I believe this story may mainly be about white people. So it was very, very interesting to have this story that's pretty much mainstream, if you will, about white people, and then you kind of have it flip. So it's about Black culture and basically putting Black culture on a pedestal. So this was basically a love story to Black people, to Black culture, while also telling the story of a very famous author. Now, one thing I want to call out is that Mara Brock Akil, if I'm saying her name correctly. I think she's kind of considered a big deal when it comes to telling Black stories. I believe she's a writer and a producer. She's known for Girlfriend. I did get her confused initially with Gina Prince Blythewood, who was the one who did Love and Basketball, for example. So you have these two women who are telling Black stories in a really powerful way. And so when I saw Mara Brock Akil's name attached to this project, I knew that it was going to be really good. And so I was very excited. To watch this TV show. I also want to call out how excited I am that they were able to take this white story and kind of reframe it and tell it through the lens of Black culture, because right now we are seeing a lot of backlash about Professor Snape being Black, and obviously it's different to have like a cast of mainly white people and then just one Black person. That shouldn't really change the story too much, but obviously if you're adding a Black person to where there was previously a white person playing that role, certain things that happen are going to have a different meaning when it happens to a Black person, or it's going to send a different message. That's not always the case, but that's usually kind of what you think about if you are really actually considering the implications of changing the race of a character. However, because this was a predominantly Black cast, I don't think it should matter that this should have been a story about white people. I think it's totally fine that we have this adaptation and it's made for Black culture, Black people. White people can watch the show. White people can get into the show. They can see the value in it, because I know that back in the day when everyone was watching cable, there were a lot of Black shows on TV, and white people would watch those shows, but you just have to have those shows done in a way where people who are not Black are going to want to watch that show. One, because it's either a good storyline, they know the actors, or there's something that draws them back each night or each week to continue watching the series. And so I think that even though this story is a predominantly Black cast, about Black culture, I do think anybody can watch this and find and see the value in it. With that being said, this speaks to the quality of the work. So earlier, I made the comparison between All American and Forever, both predominantly Black TV shows, both based in LA. The only difference really for me is the quality of acting. So I feel like Forever is the type of TV show where it could have been on cable network back in the early 2000s. Obviously, All American is on cable TV right now, but it has the type of acting that you see in a kind of made-for-TV type of movie, so the acting is not quite the level that it needs to be. All American is still going to have an impact and value to the Black community and the people who watch it, but when the acting is like Hollywood type of acting, it just takes the TV show to another level, and I don't feel like All American is at that level, even though I think it's still a great TV show. Okay, so next up I want to talk about Justin's ADHD. So I could tell that something was different about him as I continued to watch, but I didn't know what it was exactly. I initially thought it was either just awkwardness or autism, so I wasn't sure how it was classified, but I could just tell that there was something different about him. And I really liked that they talked about, even if it was just briefly, they talked about how he got extended time on his exams. That's something that I used to have because of my hearing loss, because it impacts the way I process things and whatever. So I really like that they showcased that, because I don't know that everyone knows kind of like what it's like to have a disability or a mental situation and how that impacts you when it comes to the classroom and learning. So I was really glad that you got to see how that played out in his life, because we know that he had tutors, we know that he got extra time on his exams, we know that he also wasn't a top student, but his parents were really doing everything that they could to help get him to where they wanted him to go and set him up for success. And when you aren't regular or normal, there's a lot of extra stuff that you have to do just to be where everybody else is, with basically no effort really. That's just naturally where they are. So you're constantly feeling like you have to play catch up. And so I thought it was really good to see the main lead have ADHD, and just showing how that impacts him in his day-to-day life, because obviously some of his interactions were awkward and some of his movements at times were awkward, but it still showed you that he was a person who could critically think about things, and then it also showed you that his feelings mattered, what he thought mattered, he was honest, and so people didn't really have to guess where they stood with him, which is what Keisha would say during the series. And so I really think that it's very refreshing to have a Black man who has a disability, so to speak, and you can see him being unapologetically himself with his friend and with his girlfriend. And obviously we know that he struggles to be like that with his parent, but I think that's also just a part of growing up. And so I thought it was very nice to see a Black man who wasn't supposed to be a thug, who wasn't supposed to be an arrogant, cocky basketball player. We'll talk about that in a second, but I just thought it was good to see Black men in a different light, because obviously I think the comparison people have when they think about Black men, they either think of Boys in the Hood, they think of Will Smith and Freshman, or they think of Carlton. And so it was just nice to see a guy who is kind of the mix of the last two as far as Will Smith and Carlton, but we get to see that displayed in a positive way instead of it being kind of like this bullying type of situation or this less than type of situation. We just really got to see how he has to go about life differently because of his ADHD. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk about Keisha's sex tape. So I was very confused in the beginning because I felt like because Keisha knew about the tape, that was influencing how she was approaching Justin, because I remember the scene where they went out for their first date, and this was after they came out of the clothing store and they were holding hands, and then she saw his friend and then she let his hand go. And so I almost got the sense that maybe she was embarrassed to be seen with him or whatever. Maybe she just wanted to spare him embarrassment. I don't know. Obviously I know it's the second one because of the sex tape. She knew about it and he didn't at the time, but it also came off as if she was embarrassed by him initially for a second. And so I was very confused by that, because she was letting that dictate how she was interacting with Justin. And obviously it's a bad word to say in this type of situation, but I don't know why she, like when they were in the movie theater and she wanted to go do whatever, I don't know why she moved to do that action without really knowing what his experience was, because she didn't even know if he wanted that. And then obviously he was quick thinking and he just randomly said, you know, you don't have to do this because I bought you something. And I don't know where he got that from. I don't know if that's him letting Darius get in his head with whatever advice Darius is giving him. And so I feel like he was saying that based off of stuff that he's either seen on TV or heard from his friends, but he didn't know how to say, like, hey, you know, I'm actually not ready for that, I'm a virgin, whatever, we don't need to do that. And that's why he wasn't able to communicate that, because he didn't know what her perspective was. And so I think that's where they got their wires crossed, because she was just treating him like some regular dude who is always just looking for sex or whatever, when he was really not like that. And so I think it was just them misunderstanding each other and their intentions. Obviously they liked each other, but I think she wanted to move faster than he did. He didn't really understand why she was moving so fast, and then they just kind of had that breakdown where they assumed the wrong thing. Like he was listening to his friend, getting in his head about girls in general, and then she was thinking that she had to act a certain way in order to show a guy that she liked him, which I think is pretty unfortunate. But I'm glad that we get to see Justin kind of tell her, like, hey, you know, that's not what I'm about. Don't confuse somebody else's personality with mine and all of that stuff. And so we got to see them come together and kind of clear that miscommunication up and kind of work their way back to each other. The other thing that I want to talk about with this sex tape is that I was really sad for Keisha that she thought that her mother wanted her to be treated like that in order to be an NBA wife of Christian. Like obviously they kept talking about him like he was the next LeBron, whatever, but I think it's sad that she thought that she needed to give her mother that moment, and that is what her mother would have wanted her to go through in order to get that moment. So I wish that she could have opened up to her mother sooner and didn't feel like she had to take all of that on by herself, because one, that either speaks to the fact that she she feels like her mother may be using her to get a better life for themselves, which I don't think is the case because her mother didn't really realize the implications. And I also thought it was very ironic how her mother was giving her advice as if she hadn't done the sex tape, not realizing that she was basically shaming her daughter even more into not wanting to talk to her because she kept approaching the conversations as if she knew everything about her daughter when she didn't. And so that is what caused the breakdown in their relationship, because her mom was constantly, Shelly was constantly saying things to reinforce that Keisha was not the person she thought she was. And it's not even about being the person she thought she was. It's just about her not understanding that her daughter had experiences that she wasn't prepared to deal with and she wasn't thinking about. And so she was only thinking one way in terms of raising her daughter, and she didn't know how to move outside of that because she wasn't really fully considering the many different things that could happen to her daughter. And so we do see them have that conversation where Shelly says that she thought the worst thing that could happen to her daughter was getting pregnant, and then obviously there's other bad things that can happen besides that worst thing that she was thinking of. The other thing I want to talk about is I thought it was crazy how when Dawn found out about the sex tape, she immediately assumed that Justin didn't know. And I wondered if she thought that Keisha was taking advantage of Justin, because I'm glad that Jack's mom said that it happened last year, because if she hadn't said that, I wonder if she would have thought that Justin and Keisha were on the tape and she didn't know about it. And so obviously when she finds out about it, she's like, oh, this is not the right girl for you. She doesn't make the right decisions, whatever. And then as they talk about it more, she realizes, hey, this awful thing happened to this girl. Nobody was there to support her. I'm gonna step in and do the right thing. And so I really love that she was concerned for her son, but she was also protective of Keisha, because one thing that I think was a interesting kind of irony is that they said that Dawn thought that the kids were better off going to predominantly white schools, but she also wanted her kids to end up with Black women, so she was putting them in an environment where they were less likely to meet Black women, but still wanting that for them. And so I think that was just a weird contradiction to be in. And so when you have this situation happen, she's realizing, Keisha was at this predominantly white school as well, and that didn't benefit her when it mattered, when she needed the support. And so I'm glad that Dawn was able to kind of step back and realize that, and then kind of also repair her relationship with Keisha, because she hated Keisha when she found out about Kristen. And I thought she was very observant to see how Justin was reacting to when Kristen and Keisha were talking outside the baseball game. So you saw Justin kind of walk over so he could see better what was going on, and you saw her kind of watching his reaction to it. And I thought it was interesting because she knew that it really bothered him, but she also wasn't the person he wanted to talk to about what was going on. And so it was really tough to see him struggle in those moments, because you could tell he needed support, but that was also a very difficult situation to talk about just because of everything that was happening with Keisha. Okay, so one thing I want to mention that's kind of off topic in terms of the storyline and the plot, but this Forever was so well done that I want to call out that this is why I think Lauren London is always repping LA. Like, you see the best parts of LA in Forever. You also see it in All American, because they're really hyping up that area of LA where they're from, and you see the influence, the cultural influence from the fashion, the way they talk, and how they move throughout life, how they move from being in predominantly white schools or private school, whatever the case is, and then also interacting with their Black friends in either different neighborhoods or whatever. And so I thought that this really was a love story to Black culture and to LA specifically, and I can see why so many people have pride in where they come from, especially like pride in the cities they come from, especially if they have Black culture like this. Like, I'm gonna get into this point in a second, but I just thought it was really, it really solidified to me why we see people like Lauren London who are constantly repping LA or just really giving praise to the city, the neighborhood that they are from. Now, on the flip side of that, let's talk about Black stereotypes. So I came into this because when I read urban fiction books, because I watch Black reality shows, so Love and Hip Hop, all of that stuff, and because I watch shows like Raising Canon, The Power book series and all of that stuff, you kind of expect bad things to happen to Black people. And so there are a few moments where I was expecting the worst to happen because Justin is Black. The first one, the first situation that happened is when he drove his car to Keisha's house. He was leaving, the cops pulled up behind him, he freaked out at the stoplight, he finally made a turn, their signs came on, and then they actually ended up driving past him. I fully expected him to be pulled over or shot just because of that being the narrative that is constantly reinforced in those type of situations. And then the second situation that I thought was going to happen is when Justin went to tell the DJ to turn down his music because of his personality, because of his ADHD. I didn't know how that communication was going to go with a Black man who's not his friend. And so I fully expected him to get into an argument, to get beat up, whatever. And I'm glad that that didn't happen because, one, it doesn't need to happen. You can have Black people come together and have differences and still treat each other with respect. It doesn't have to lead to the situation of trying to prove who's the bigger man or trying to prove that you have to act a certain way in order to fit in with other Black people. And then the third situation that I thought was going to turn bad is when Keisha went to the vineyard with her friend Chloe, when she met Chloe's aunt or whatever, and then they went into like the farmer's market or whatever to shop, and they were given bags to put the groceries in. I thought at some point she was going to be accused of stealing, and I'm glad that that didn't happen because obviously that didn't need to happen. Black people go to stores every day where they're not accused of stealing, and so I'm just really glad that in a general sense they did not play into all of these negative stereotypes. They really focused on showing Black culture in a positive, wholesome light. There was very little crime at all through this series. The only crime that we really talked about was the crime of passing around the sex tape, of all of that stuff. And so I was really glad that they kept these stereotypes to a minimum. The one thing that I did want to call out is that they did have moments with Dawn where they show that she was very overprotective of her son, and she was concerned about him, Justin, driving late at night and getting pulled over by the cops. And so we really saw the dynamic between Eric and Dawn in those moments, because we saw that she was projecting her fears onto Justin, she was coddling him, she was preventing him from growing up. And then we had Eric, who obviously wants to make his wife happy, but he knows that he needs to step in as a man and kind of intervene and raise his son to be a man who can go out into the world and be fully prepared for different situations that he's come across, because his father taught him how to handle those situations versus being kept at home and you don't know how to react in different situations because all your parents try to do is protect you and shield you instead of educating you and preparing you for those moments if they happen. And if should be the key word there, because a lot of people act like it's a matter of when these situations happen instead of looking at it as if these situations happen. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about a few of the best moments. So I really loved at the beginning where we have Justin getting in trouble because he makes his driver's ed teacher take him to where Keisha's school is so he can apologize, get her to unblock him, and they can continue their friendship or whatever. And then his mother, when she finds out, she grounds him, she takes his phone, she makes him use her old laptop, which has his old songs on it. And then we have this moment where he's talking to his dad and trying to explain the situation or whatever. And then his dad is like, just tell your mom that this is over a Black woman, this is over Keisha, and she'll understand, because there's nothing more that your mom wants for you than for you to either go to college, succeed, or whatever. than to be with a black woman. And so I thought it was funny when we see that moment of him telling his mother about Keisha, and she's like, "Black Keisha?" And he's like, "Mom, come on, how many white Keishas do you know?" And so she was just really happy that she had a black Keisha in her son's life, and she wanted to do everything that she could to nurture that relationship, because she, again, as I just mentioned, she's sending her son to predominantly white schools. There's gonna be other black kids there, but there's not gonna be as many. And so if he's not surrounded by black people outside of school, it's gonna be hard for him to find a black woman to settle down with, which is what she wants. The other thing that I thought was so funny is that after that moment where we talked about Kristen and Keisha talking at the baseball game, we see that he's mad, he blocks her, whatever, and then he plays Kristen's school twice. The first game I think he doesn't play, the second game he checks himself in, and then he just goes off. And this is where you see that his basketball skills are really, really, really bad. Like, you could tell when they put a different person in to do some of the basketball moves, and I'm gonna say that this was worse than Chad Michael Murray in One Tree Hill. Like, he can't play basketball at all. This actor cannot play basketball either. And I made a decision to say that him not being able to play basketball was not going to detract from how good Forever is. Like, this is just a tiny, tiny side note at the bottom that you need to register in your mind, but then after that you need to forget it, ignore it. That's not the focus of this TV show. Whether or not he can actually play basketball is not a thing to be hyper focused on, but he cannot play. And so it was obvious when they put other people in to do the moves that he was supposed to do and all of that stuff. But anyway, my point is that he had that really good game. She waited for him. She was the only person in the gym. He walked past her, ignored her. He was talking to his parents outside. His mother noticed Keisha, and you saw that she had this like weird look on her face, and Eric was pulling her away. And then he was trying to get away from Keisha basically, but he didn't have a ride, and so he walked to the bus stop. Didn't know where he was going, and so he just got on I guess he just took the bus somewhere. They got off. She took them to the train, and then they kind of made up when she pulled out his earbud and was listening to whatever he was listening to. And I don't know if he was listening to like podcasts where they play stuff to help like calm you down or whatever, because I don't know if it was saying words based on the alphabet, because when she was listening to it, it was like Alpha Llama or something like that. So I don't know what type of thing he was listening to, but it might have been something to help calm him down because of like the stress of the environment or whatever, because he was trying to get away from Keisha. She was following him, and she wasn't being like annoying about it, but I was glad that we saw that moment where they made up on the train, and that was just a beautiful moment to see. Like, it was another display of how good the chemistry was together. The other best moment that I want to call out is towards the end, where we have Keisha's mom, Shelly, finding out about the sex tape. We have Justin wanting to go to her house to comfort her, and then Dawn's like, "No, you can't go out, it's too late. That what if there's cops out there and they stop you, whatever." And this is where we see Eric put his foot down and say, "No, you can go. Be home by a certain time. When we text you, respond," and all of that stuff. So I really love that moment of seeing black masculinity, of seeing a black man step in, take charge, take leadership, and basically tell his son, like, "Hey, you can do this. This is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. And then, Dawn, you need to be quiet and let this happen." I really like seeing that type of dynamic, because one, that wasn't something that we were always seeing. It was really kind of Dawn driving everything, and then you had times where Eric would step up and say, "Hey, no, this is not what we're doing, this is going to happen instead," or he would always try to soften whatever Dawn was saying. And usually it's the opposite way. You have the father who is domineering, who what I say goes, and then you have the mother kind of stepping in to kind of soften that a little bit. So the roles were reversed, and I really like that he did that at moments that truly benefited his son, in terms of letting his son do what he wanted to do, but he also used those moments to prepare his son so that he could handle the situation. So I just really like seeing fatherhood and the positivity of that, because I know that in a lot of TV shows about Black culture, what we usually see is homes where the father is not present. And so I really like seeing how active he was in raising his sons. Okay, so there's one last point I want to make. And so I mentioned earlier that I binged the first 6 episodes, and then I went to bed, woke up, and then I started watching episodes 7 and 8, I think around 9 a.m. the next morning. I also stopped watching with like 10 minutes left to go run in, and I knew that initially I was feeling like those cheesy happy feelings for the first 6 episodes, but then also by episode 7 I got to the point where, hey, you know, we're getting ready to go to college, things are changing, and those are usually when those conversations about breaking up or staying together come up. And so at this point of when I stopped watching with just 10 minutes left in the last episode, this is where I kind of started to get depressed and not have those happy feelings, because obviously we saw the breakdown of their relationship, we saw them growing apart and kind of growing up, but also because it's that feeling or that sense of loss that I did not like, because obviously in the first 6 episodes everything was kind of up and down for them, but for the most part there were a lot of good moments, and so I really thrived in those earlier episodes of feeling like uplifted and positive and happy, and then I low-key got depressed and kind of sad and just felt like basically I felt like I was being taken out of this happy universe that I was in by watching this TV show, and because I'm seeing the breakdown of something, that just kind of made me think about my own life as well, because as I said, this is not something that I've experienced growing up, having a first love or having the love of my life and finding that person when I was younger. And so it just hit me in a certain way to where I got depressed. And when I came back to finish the last 10 minutes, we do see Keisha and Justin reunite, they go to dinner, and then I hated the ending where we see them walk away, because I kind of have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know if there's going to be a season 2, and I really just did not like the ending, and I don't know if it's because of how I saved the last 2 episodes for the next day, and then I had to wait a while to watch those last 10 minutes when I was already starting to feel a certain way, and then when I come back and then just feel like the last 10 minutes let me down. So I'll just leave it at that, but overall this is a very good series to watch, and I'm super excited that I decided to watch it. Alrighty, so we are ready to wrap up this episode. I don't have anything else to talk about in this section or in this portion of the video. I hope that there's a season 2. I purposefully did not read any reviews on Forever or even look up to see if there's going to be another season, because I didn't want anybody else's opinions to influence how I perceive the show, because I know a lot of times I'll watch a show and I'm like, this is a really great show, and then I'll see other people talk about, oh, well, you know, this character did this and it was weird, or this part of a storyline there's actually a plot hole and it didn't make sense, and so they point out things that either I missed or didn't catch, or I caught it and I didn't care enough about it to where it lessened the value of the show for me. And so I'm really glad that I watched Forever. Hopefully you have decided to watch Forever based on this video, or if you've already watched it, hopefully you can let me know in the comments below what you think about Forever, this TV series on Netflix. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.